So thank you very much, and please welcome John Shannon.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 32nd season of Present Music and the annual Thanksgiving concert. Many of you who are Present Music regulars know that we present 7 concerts a year in many different venues with a wide range of music, but once a year, and this is for 18 years, Kevin has scheduled a Thanksgiving concert. It's probably the only tradition in this very non-traditional music. And in thinking about the Thanksgiving concerts, there is a commonality in all of them, and that is vocal music. We don't always have that in our concerts, do we? But always, for the Thanksgiving concert, there is vocal music, choral music, and almost always, and again today, there will be audience participation. Even I will be singing, which is an embarrassing thing. So music and voice is part of Thanksgiving and part of the Thanksgiving concerts. Our guest this afternoon and for this concert is Caroline Shaw, who this year won the Pulitzer Prize for Music. The Pulitzer Prize for Music has been presented for 70 years. It started in 1943, and in that 70-year period, women have won the Pulitzer 4 times. She is the 5th. That's singular. Additionally, she is the youngest winner ever of the Pulitzer Prize. Pulitzer Prizes are given to a composer for a particular piece that they've written. Carolyn, what was your piece? And let me move this around. Here.
Hi, John. The piece is called Partita for 8 Voices, and it was written for a group called Room Full of Teeth, which is a very evocative name, a little bit terrifying, but kind of fun. And it's a group of 8 singers, and I'm one of the singers, and we're all classically trained. We do a lot of early music, so a lot of us sing Byrd and Tallis and Monteverdi, and we've also, we've also been training in different ways of using our voice. So thinking about ways people use their voice around the world. We've studied with a master tube and throat singer. We studied yodeling, both Swiss and Central African yodeling in different styles. Belting, ranging from sort of Bulgarian women's choir style belting to Broadway belting, among many others. Inuit throat singing, Georgian folk singing. And it's this really wonderful way of opening up our ears and minds and literally our throats to different ways of using the voice. So I was really fascinated by all the colors that we could get with our voices in a sort of non-classical way, non-Western classical way. And I wrote a piece that is in 4 movements. There's an Allemande, Sarabande, Courante, and Passacaglia. So it's sort of based on the Baroque suite. And this is for a few different reasons. One, I'm a violinist by training, and I've played the violin sonatas and partitas and a few of the French suites on piano. And I love these forms, I love these dance forms, and I love the Baroque tradition. But also, one of my sort of many little jobs in New York is accompanying dance classes. So I accompany ballet, dance classes, and modern classes, and the experience of playing for dance and making music for dance is really interesting and exciting to me. So this piece is sort of inspired by all of those things.
Now you are a vocalist yourself, you're also a violinist, right? And you play, you're a freelance instrumentalist. You began as an instrumentalist and a vocalist. How did you then become a composer? When did that happen? Could you address that?
Sure. My sort of path to writing music is maybe a little bit less traditional than some modern classical composers. I wrote music when I was very little, when I was 10 and 11, kind of in the styles of music that I was playing at the time. And then I stopped for many years, maybe partly because I was practicing a lot and playing a lot of chamber music, but I also wasn't quite sure what I wanted to write. It takes a long time to kind of figure out the kind of music that you want to make in the world. And I, sort of in college and grad school and afterward, I started playing a lot of new music, which is all really exciting, and I know so many composers and so many different ideas, and I would find myself kind of recomposing things as I was playing them. I wouldn't tell anybody. That's really rude. But sort of thinking about, oh, well, they did this, that's really interesting, but what if it had taken this different turn, or what if this harmony had happened, or this particular set of harmonies? And really no one, I started writing music and didn't tell anyone for a long time. And when Roomful of Teeth first got together, the summer of 2009, I was just hired as the singer, and the director said, well, we have a concert in 3 weeks, and we have a few pieces that we're going to sort of make for the program. If anyone in the group would like to try to write something, feel free to sort of have at it with these new sounds. And that summer I wrote a piece called Passacaglia, which became the fourth movement of the Partita for 8 voices. So it really came from a place of wanting to write music for my friends, and but also having a very strong urge to make certain harmonies that I hadn't heard in a long time. That's a longer conversation to have. But I also was starting to write music for dance, writing music for friends who were dancers. So I had this program, can you make a 5-minute piece? And I would sort of record something, and that was how it started. Also, one of the pieces that you're going to hear tonight is called, my Italian is terrible, Cantico delle Creature, Canticle of the Creatures. And I wrote that in 2007 for my graduate recital for a few friends to play. It's for violin, piano, and singer, and we've added a cello part. That's really probably the first piece that I really completed and performed in public. So I'm very excited to hear it tonight with some players that I know and some players that I've just met. I'm going to hand it back to you, John. Okay.
But tell us a little bit more of your compositional methods. Do you compose at a piano, as many composers do, and many don't? How do you compose?
That's a great question. When I was writing a few things in college, I didn't compose at the piano. I sat on a couch. I had a piece called literally Essay on a Brown Couch, and I would sort of make up music in my head, and kind of, it was like a game, so putting a puzzle together, sort of making the counterpoint. I was really into Hindemith at that time. And it was okay music. I wouldn't say it was the greatest music ever written, but it was an interesting process. And then after college, I spent a year traveling in Europe, and there was one time where I lived in Paris for 3 months, and I found this music school down the street, and I would sneak into it. I didn't have an ID, but I could go there, and that's when I started playing the piano. Sort of finding chords of the piano. Now I actually write with the piano all the time. Sort of find the meat of the music at the piano and sort of design the shape and the style and the textures of the piece away from the piano. Sort of just in my, Hey, that's louder. Hello. So I write, sort of create, is this okay? Is that clear? Is this clear for people in the back? No, it's not very clear. If I speak like this, can you hear me?
Better. You stand up. Stand up.
I'm going to stand up. Is this okay? I sort of designed the trajectory of a piece. Often I start with thinking of a moment that I want to happen, and then trying to make something that leads up to that moment. One example of that is a piece tonight called Punctum. It's for string quartet, and the basis of Punctum is this one chord that I love from chorale in St. Matthew's Passion. And I wanted to create basically a series of many, many chords that take you sort of out of your comfort zone and then lead up to that one moment. That's one example. The same happens in Sarabande, which is a piece for 8 voices, which is part of Partita that you'll hear tonight, and begins with these very simple chords, but leading up ultimately to this moment where the 4 guys sing in a very ecstatic, very bold way. That's that moment.
You've talked about different vocal sounds from different traditions. When you are composing, when you're notating your compositions, how do you account for some of those non-Western sounds?
You're asking sort of how I notate it,
Yes.
how I write it down.
Have you created some notation yourself?
Yes, in a few instances, a lot of what I write is in regular Western notation. And then a few times I've kind of designed a note that looks like the sound. And a really good example of that is in Sarabande. The beginning starts with the 4 women singing, ah, ah. So there's this little that happens before the note. And you can't really write that down. You can sort of explain it with words, which is what I did, but the note itself just looks like a little gentle curve. A few other things, sometimes we'll just say in words what I mean, but there are so many things that you can't say in the score, and that's why I work with people that I know, so we can talk about it, we can find it, and I can describe it to them in person. And it's been a real luxury here at Present Music to be able to work with the singers and say exactly what I mean. So there's another piece called Fly Away I that's on the program tonight, and there's a moment where I don't want them to just sing ah, straight, but I want to have this little texture of ah, 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 ah. So they're saying the word I over and over again in a very gentle way. So all together it has this very sort of sparkly texture.
Are there questions from the audience? Does anyone have any?
Well, and I would have a question.
Yes.
What you've just described sounds like you need to be involved for your music to be performed the way you envision it. How does that translate into when you're not there? You just either not there years from now or just can't be there.
I don't know yet. It's, I didn't write music to send to people far away. I wrote music for people who were right there with me, or I wrote music for myself. So this is, I wouldn't call it a problem, but it's an interesting challenge going forward. Years from now, I really don't know, but right now I'm doing a lot of traveling and going different places so I can talk to people, and not only so I can give them a sense of how to make the music, but a little sense of my personality and where things came from. In the future, we have the internet now, which is really a wonderful thing. We have YouTube, I have a website, I have ways of describing things online and remotely that it never existed before. So now when I write music, I can think that way. I'm not sort of beholden to the score, but I can think, well, if this is hard to describe, then I'm sure I can make a phone call or have a Skype session or make a little video and we'll be okay. That's part of it.
Yes, Michael?
Yes, you seem to have an advantage of belonging to a vocal group and belonging to an instrumental group. I mean, how do you take advantage of working with the members of that group to help to move a piece along as you're developing it?
Yeah, I'm incredibly, very, very lucky that I get to work with some really great groups. With Roomful of Teeth, I would bring in music sort of one day, and then we'd try it out that day, and I'd say what works, what doesn't. I would ask them, is this comfortable for you, Matt? Is this interesting? Which is where the sound came from originally. I wanted everyone to go, ah, and sweet Estelle was like, no, we can't do that. I can't do that over and over, I'll do it one time. So I made a change that way. And other thing, I just wrote a piece called Ritornello, which is actually two different versions, one for Roomful of Teeth and one for a string quartet, and I was singing in one version and playing in the other, and I was able to sort of show everyone what I meant. And there's one section I even said, just look at me and follow what I'm doing. I'm not going to write it down. So that's a great advantage. It's also a challenge going forward, to transmit these pieces to other people. But I feel very lucky. I get to work with some really amazing musicians who are very open and very, very talented.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Now that you've won the Pulitzer, I'm sure it's easy to get your works published. How about before you won the Pulitzer?
The question was, now that I have the Pulitzer, I don't say that very often. It sounds really weird. So now it seems maybe it would be easier to get my works published, whereas before it was very difficult. And honestly, I'm actually not sure if I want to go through a traditional publishing system. Things are changing, and I don't know exactly how I fit into it. But yes, certainly people are aware of my music much more now, and I'm very grateful to the prize for sort of giving me that forum to share my music in a different way.
Just a note here, Caroline will be back later on in 2014 with Present Music. Please make sure that you are on our email list. If you're on our email list, Present Music will be in touch with you when she is here with us at Present Music. She will also be in 2014 at Lawrence University in Appleton with a fairly extended residency there, if I'm not mistaken. Again, we'll contact you about that if you are on our email list. So please, if you are not on our email list, there are people here who can help you with that. Could you tell us a little bit about the Lawrence project?
Yes, Roomful of Teeth is going to be at Lawrence University in, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's February or March, but we'll be working with, I think, some local students and also composition students there for a couple of days, and we'll be performing a concert of some of my music, but also some of the other repertoire that we sing.
There was a question over here, yes.
I was interested in the comment written for Sarah Bundy about the Saul LeWitt wall drawing. Are you aware that the Milwaukee Art Museum has about a 10 by 15 foot solid drawing? Well, and this is maybe connected to your music when you march around. Of course, what the museum did was purchase his directions, and then it was implemented by 2 of his assistants and 2 of the museum staff personnel. It's a wall that most people walk right by because it's a white wall with pencil drawings on it. So if you have time, you need to get to the Milwaukee Art Museum and take a look at it.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Would you be able to write a letter of instruction that would help get your music out to other people when you aren't there?
Well, that's sort of what composers do. We sort of write instructions, and then someone else paints it on the wall. Which is a really cool sort of analog between music and art. I hope the museum's open tomorrow, because that's my day off.
It isn't, but I think if you called and said who you were and why you wanted to go, I think you could get in. The reason why I say that was last Monday they let the Milwaukee Bucks in special.
I'm not as fancy as they are.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
For the Partita for 8 Voices, how did you go about choosing your text? Because I found it very interesting, and I was wondering how did you go about choosing what you used for text in that piece?
How did I choose the text for Partita? Well, actually, probably 95% of Partita there's no text. It's a lot of vowels and just sound. There's some spoken text, which is Solowitz wall drawing directions. And so there are very sort of technical instructions like draw a point halfway between the midpoint of the left side and halfway between the midpoint of the right side and the lower right corner. This kind of draftsman's directions. And then there are a few other little bits like fall away, find a way back home. Those are my own little tiny interjections. And there's one line from T.S. Eliot's Burnt Norton from the 4 quartets that is, the detail of the pattern is movement. Yeah. And that is, it's the detail of the pattern is movement. I don't even know what it means, but I think about it all the time. I think there are mantras that people say or little prayers that people say, and after a certain amount of repetition, it sort of loses its meaning, but it gains another kind of meaning. And really sort of repeating the phrase, the detail of the pattern is movement, creates its own kind of pattern and its own kind of movement, which is sort of what music does in a way.
Other questions? We've talked somewhat seriously about music and construction of music. What are you listening on your iPod? What's on your playlist?
Well, in the last couple of months I've had to write a lot of music, so I actually listen to very little, except for Bach. It's a very strict diet of Bach. But in other times I listen to a lot of Schubert, Mozart. I'm a very classical person. There's also a band called Tune Yards, which is run by Meryl Garbus, who lives in California now. It's really exciting, energetic music. She uses a loop pedal. She uses her voice in a very interesting way. Very interesting artist. I also just like some singer-songwriters. There's someone named Sharon Van Etten, just writes beautiful, simple songs. Gosh. There's a really beautiful Indira player named Stella, and I can't say her last name. I listen to her music a lot. Yeah.
You're originally from North Carolina, now living in New York. Did you canoe or kayak there? Tell us a little bit about your kayaking.
Kayaking, yeah. I grew up kayaking a little bit with my family. We go camping a lot in North Carolina, going on the rivers, either in the mountains or I'm from the eastern part of the state, so sort of near the beach. And this summer I discovered that you can kayak in from the Hudson River around Manhattan. And that is the most amazing view in the world. So I'm not from New York. I've ended up living there just sort of by chance and circumstance. So it's really important to get a really, perspective on Manhattan. So I go out in a boat, get about 100 feet away, and it feels really good. And I've done a few just sort of 10 to 15 mile trips. I have a friend who circumnavigated Iceland, and I'm not there yet, but that would be cool.
Well, we welcome you to Milwaukee, to Present Music, and specifically this Thanksgiving concert. Thank you very much, and we'll be watching you and your career as you progress. Thank you.
Thank you.